All right, in other news, Russia has conducted fresh strikes on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region. Ukraine says Russian forces carried out 567 attacks over the last 24 hours.
At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings, and a post office suffered damage.
2 Russian brigades, over 100 armored vehicles, pushed forward under heavy artillery cover. Minutes later, almost none of them reached their objective. Why? Because Ukraine's new ambush tactic turned an unstoppable convoy into a stalled wreckage field. The question is not just how this happened, but what it means for the future of tank warfare. Stick with us, because once you see the precision, timing, and scale of this ambush, you might rethink everything you know about modern armored combat. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much.
Biggest Russian drone and missile attack of the war. Ukraine says Moscow fired 550 drones and 11 missiles overnight.
To Russia launching a massive aerial assault against Ukraine, the biggest since the invasion more than 3 years ago.
At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings, and a post office suffered damage.
Now back to the vid. Armored spearheads have always given Russia its battlefield confidence. But what happens when that spearhead never even makes it to the fight? The doctrine is built on momentum. Russian armored warfare relies not on scattered attacks, but on massive spearhead convoys. Rows of tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and mobile artillery stacked one behind the other. These convoys are not random. They're meant to punch through defenses fast, overwhelm anyone in their path, and then spread into the rear to collapse Ukrainian lines from within. On paper, the shock of steel, fuel, and firepower arriving all at once should be enough to crush weaker positions. Yet there's a problem. The sheer size of these convoys may look like strength, but it comes with a flaw that Ukraine has learned how to exploit. Think about the scale. A single armored column can stretch for 20 miles. That's not an exaggeration. Dozens of main battle tanks, armored personnel carriers, fuel trucks, and self-propelled howitzers crawling forward on rural highways or dirt roads. Once that many vehicles are set in motion, they can't just slip out of sight. It's impossible to mass from the air, difficult to coordinate over bad terrain, and logistically exhausting to keep fueled. It's also rigid. If just a few vehicles are stopped near the lead, the entire column begins backing up like traffic during rush hour. And unlike cars, these are machines weighing tens of tons. Turning them around on narrow paths is not an option. A stalled convoy doesn't maneuver. It waits exposed until the problem is cleared, or until someone targets it. Ukraine recognized this pattern and didn't try to meet these columns head-on. Instead, they placed a layer of eyes over the region. It begins with drones, cheap quadcopters flying low, and larger unmanned aircraft scanning at higher altitudes. Add to that the feed from satellites that can track movement across long distances. Even the chatter from Russian radios isn't safe. Ukrainian teams listen for it. When the first sound of engines starting or the first heat signatures pop up, Ukraine already has warning. That means they don't see a column only when it bursts into range. They see it hours earlier as it forms on the horizon. This network transforms the battlefield. Before, Russian armor could march forward and force Ukrainian defenders to react. Now those roads and bridges become mapped choke points. Every likely crossing spot, every valley, every road bend is flagged as a possible trap. Ukrainian engineers prepare those traps long before the convoy arrives. Mines hidden along margins of roads, explosive charges waiting under bridges, or even simple blockages designed to funnel 30-ton tanks into single-file lanes.
Rescue workers say 1 person died and 26 were injured.
Who is a political analyst, expert and in Russian politics. Welcome to WION, Dr. Hazir. First up, of course, I want to ask you, what kind of an impact will this meet between U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the Russian president have?
Picture the scene once a convoy is detected. A drone operator marks where it's heading. Ukrainian forces don't rush to meet it up front, they wait. As the first armored units roll toward an area chosen for ambush, their lanes are already narrowed by hidden mines. Heavy tanks can't risk plunging off-road. The weight bogs them down in soft soil or mud, so they grind forward on predictable tracks, not knowing those tracks are the very ones mapped for artillery fire. What might feel like routine movement becomes a trap where every step is controlled by unseen hands. The delays start small, a blown tire from a mine, a destroyed lead vehicle blocking the lane. But each pause matters. 10 minutes of confusion at the front multiplies to hours as the tail struggles to catch up. During that lull, Ukraine's artillery units move into position. Precision rounds don't slam indiscriminately. They strike the fuel trucks first, then the command vehicles, forcing the entire formation into chaos. By the time Russian artillery can react, the convoy is fragmented. Once solid units are parked in short, broken sections of road, unable to coordinate and unable to retreat. The effect is brutal in its simplicity. A force that once depended on speed and shock now finds itself segmented, delayed, and pinned down in the open. Instead of achieving breakthrough, the armored mass becomes a target range for smaller, network defenders who never had to match its size in the first place. What looked like rolling power turns into stalled wreckage under surveillance-guided strikes. And that's the real signal in this tactic. It's not just about clever ambushes or well-placed mines. It points to something deeper. The way combat changes when surveillance and precision weapons dominate movement itself. Tanks may still be lethal machines, but if convoys can't even reach the battlefield intact, the entire logic of armored warfare begins to bend under modern conditions.
All right, in other news, Russia has conducted fresh strikes on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region. Ukraine says Russian forces carried out 567 attacks over the last 24 hours. And well, for more on this, we are now being joined from Moscow is Dr. Umit Nazmi-Hazir.
Ukraine and Russia are exchanging fire on multiple fronts. Bridges are being destroyed, cities are burning, and oil depots are under attack.
On Trump's August deadline to seize the Russia-Ukraine war. We are just 2 days away from that.
Ukraine's ambush system proves something striking. Size alone no longer guarantees momentum. Smaller, flexible units linked by surveillance and precision strikes can dismantle heavy mechanized pushes before they gather speed. Tempo and timing decide outcomes more than armor plating. That raises a larger question. If convoys can be shredded before battle, are we watching the decline of the tank as the dominant battlefield weapon? Or does armor still matter in ways drones and artillery can't replace? Tell us in the comments. Do tanks still have a future? Or has the drone era already rewritten warfare's rulebook?